Hi, this is Ricardo, this is Ramon.
Hello.
Ramon is the founder and owner of ACTAR, and Ricardo is now the main, one of the main editors in the publishing house. They're in Barcelona now. That's the office that they have in Barcelona, but basically they're based in New York as well. And as you've been looking at with your research about them, they are one of the cutting-edge publishing houses in architecture. They've been working for many, many years, and they are very nice and kind people that we're going to discuss with you everything you want to ask them. Ricardo, Ramon, we're going to have to do that with the Skype, which is kind of like a tricky as a technology. If you don't hear something, let us know. We're going to shout more, because we have only the micro of the computer here. They can listen to you perfectly because you've been plugged to the main audio of the classroom. So your audio is fine, but ours may be tricky. So if you have problems listening to us, because they're going to be asking you the questions, let us know, and maybe they have to get closer to the computer or just make it louder. Okay?
Okay, perfect.
So I think the best format is that there are like 4 groups in the seminar. As I sent you the brief, basically we are researching about biennales or biennials. The way that we set up the seminar is kind of open. We've been like collecting readings and material from people that have been working on biennials and architectural exhibitions as a theme in general, but also like publications and other venues of how architecture becomes public. And the way that we are setting up the seminar is basically we have now like a few weeks of pure research where we are like interviewing a lot of people that have a lot of experience and can help us to define what is the state of the situation today. A second part will be a very short one where they're going to have to take a position within that question, like how do they think that a biennial should be today. And the last part of the seminar will be speculating with a possible structure for a biennial in Chicago that is now under consideration, under design in fact. Sarah is basically has been commissioned to organize it. So she's working with the city for doing that, and they are targeting 2015 as the main first one. So the seminar is also like an excuse to help the city to think about what will be a biennial today. Of course, the main kind of reference is Venice, but and that's why they're going to do it like in like cross years. So they have 1 year Venice, 1 year Chicago. That will be the ambition of the whole thing. But of course, the Venice Biennale is not a model that can be used as such anymore. So that's why we think that it's an interesting conversation to have, is how to build the right definition, if there is any right definition towards a Biennale format, but also that involves every source of or every media to consider how architecture becomes public today. So what we ask the students for today is basically there are 4 groups of 3 people, and they were setting up like questions for you. They've been looking at your webpage and your publications and your activities before. We didn't have a chance to discuss much about your profile because we started the seminar last week, so you're the first guest that we have. So there are all kinds of questions, and we try to organize them according to themes or packs that they put together, very similar questions, sometimes set up by different groups. So in a way, it doesn't become so repetitive. We're going to ask you the questions by clusters or like packages, and you can reply as you want. You can skip some, you can just discuss in general. You can say that those questions are completely uninteresting. So you can just feedback in your own way. And I asked also the students to, if you are fine with that, to interrupt you if they have any questions or they don't understand something or they have any kind of clarification to be made.
Good.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
So we're going to start with group 1. That you want to introduce yourself. You're going to be there. That group in the far corner. Okay. So you have to speak very loud because the mic is here. Okay. So that's Ramon and that's Ricardo. So if you just know their names, you can introduce yourself and start a little conversation with one.
Hello, can you hear me?
Can you hear?
Yes, a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, I will
As
start.
loud as you want. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Yi, and our first part of the question would be about ACTAR, and the question are, first, what are the most important drugs for you to start ACTAR, and what ACTAR means, what ACTAR's main goals, and how do you explain the activities in ACTAR, how does it relate to architecture, and the last would be what's the process of a work being published, and how long is the turnaround time?
Good. Well, I will start. First of all, I would like to say thank you, everybody, and thank you, Luis, for offer us this opportunity to be part of this class. Hopefully, it will be useful for you, our experience. Hopefully. Well, first of all, the first question. The most important drivers for start with ACTAR project was simply more than 20 years ago the interest of a combination of architects, graphic designers, and photographers for being connected with the global discussion on architecture that happens in this moment and obviously continuing now. I think ACTAR, as a result of this context of big changes on architecture, and simply ACTAR was a kind of a tool for describing, for analyze, for discuss, and for be part of this big discussion. I think this was probably the main drivers, the main goal for us in this moment. Obviously, at the end, when you start with a small industry like ACTAR, the publishing industry, the questions, the problems, the challenges has been changed a lot during these years, and probably sometimes I thought that sometimes that changed a little bit the original spirit of the project. 20 years ago is a long time for us. In any case, you, Ricardo, perhaps,
maybe.
How would you explain activity in ACTAR? I think, no?
Yeah, as Ramon said, probably you know that ACTAR word comes from the Nicolas Roubier-Tudurí, an architect, landscaper, and also theorist from Catalonia, that uses this word because he thought that to be an architect is not only building or build some constructions, rather all the events and activities that you can do as an architect. And for instance, to publish something, to write something, or think about architecture is also part of doing ACTAR. No? For this reason, activity is really important because ACTAR as a publisher works in this sense. You do, as well as do an architect, things that comes out from, let's say, a reflexive knowledge, and you put in a clean way. And let's say in the beginning was on a printed books, but why not another kind of things, you know?
Yeah, I think for us in ACTAR, we are totally convinced that a certain way, if we make our job today publishing books, we are doing architecture in a certain way. The complexity of architecture today, that's probably allow us and produce this different range of activities related to architecture. Obviously, we have never built any construction, any building, but I think I feel totally involved on the architectural challenges doing publishing projects. And probably then this become another of our main goals into the ACTAR. As you know, the young people are normally many difficulties for be architects, for for doing buildings. And also I think that depends of your country. Sometimes also it become really very difficult to build many or interesting buildings. Not only for the complexity of the project, also for the conditions, economical, political, or social conditions. I think produce these other products become a very good and very satisfying actions that helps normally to be very well connected with the architecture and the challenges. This become probably one of the main reasons for produce the ACTAR organization, namely this. These are the questions that you sent me. What's the process of a work being published today? I think, well, that depends of the project, that depends of the content, that depends. Our main job, our main goal is be totally in the middle of this big storm that happens normally with architecture. Very well connected with a strong network of schools, architects, engineers, and politicians, to all the people that are involved with the architecture. If you are in the middle of this big network, or you are part of this big network, normally you receive many proposals, you perceive many opportunities for published projects or for developing on other platforms, and simply that's the way for us. It's not something very well fixed or very well, I don't know, decided previously. It simply happens. Sometimes when they receive one interesting proposal, or sometimes we discover one building or one architectural team, and we thought that perhaps could be interesting to developing more deeply their job, their proposals, their ideas, and why not perhaps that become one book. How long is the round time? I think also that depends on the project. We had some, I don't know, bad experience with many of our projects that we simply spent years, sometimes 5 or 6 years for developing one book. And all the times it's very fast. I suppose that at the end we try to combine also the interest of the content of these books. When the book is simply as a result of a very momentaneous action, and sometimes it's very easy to developing immediately the book. But simply after 2 or 3 or 4 years, this reflection probably has been or become a little bit out or older. But sometimes it's the opposite. Simply the book as a reflect of and strongly and very deeply reflection on some phenomena that simply is able to be published, and this complexity needed more time, more resources, more discussions, more agreements. There is no one formula for being published. That depends on the project, that depends on the context, that depends on many different things. I don't know if the answers are okay for you, if you see me, or everything is okay.
I think it's very good. Yes, we're going to keep on moving. You see yourself there. We're going to keep on moving to the second part, because I mean, we'll have many questions to be asking. Some of the topics are going to come back in a way, so also we can speed up some of the answers later, because you already mentioned some of the things that will be repeated later in the questions. I mean, we're going to go to the next group.
We're group 3.
Oh, group 3. Which group 3? Sorry, just skip.
Oh, there.
Yeah, there you go. Group 2.
Right. Can you hear me?
Loud.
Good. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm Matt. and we were going to talk about Verb and the bookazine. So they're all kind of related. Okay, so how did the bookazine come about, and what makes it different from the magazine or from other magazines? How do you decide which projects are presented in the Verb monographs, and how are they curated? And also, this is a link between two different types of print media. Do you think there will ever be a link between print and, like, say, web or electronic media, if there isn't one already?
Okay, for the first question, Verb and the idea of a bookazine was decided 13 years ago, in a moment when the idea of hybridization was the most useful and probably easy for developing. We perceive in this moment at the end of the 20th century, in 2000, that something happens with the classical magazines. In ACTAR, we are developing during near 10 years the magazine of the Catalan Association of Catalan Architects, named Quaderns. Luis also was the director, also our period. And we had in this moment a long experience developing magazines with their advantage, with the problems, and so on. When we decide in this moment to developing our own magazine, we start a big analysis of discussion which kind of platform we have to do it. And the idea of combine the best part of the magazines and the best part of the books in one only platform become the idea of the bookazine, this hybridization between book and magazine. For example, we had problems normally with the magazines for be comfortable reading a long article, for example. No? The size normally of the magazines become more, I don't know, difficult for be very well connected with I don't know, a strong thesis, with long articles. But sometimes with the book, it's also, with the normal production of books, sometimes it's very difficult to have the same real and immediately contact with the reality, with something happens in the real situation, like the magazines. The magazines are normally more well connected with the new projects, with the new books, and with the new buildings. Sorry, and with the book that it's very difficult what happens. Well, this kind of reflection was the result of the bookazine, this hybridization in this moment between two platforms, book and magazine. Perhaps to the question two, no, it's you.
Yeah, well, I would like to add that I was a former editor in the staff from Quaderns, and also I started with the Verb bookazine, no? And for me, what was most interesting was the change that in Quaderns was, let's say, a main editor. In that time was Manuel Gausa, but when we started with Verb, we were 5, let's say, editors or main editors working all together. So that changed a lot the point of view, that not only be in charge of one person, rather in a 5 or another more expansive network that we was building, no? So this also changed the point of view that is not a traditional magazine, rather a more hybrid, no? And almost from the content as well, no?
Yes, that's very easy to understand. If our goal was and is obviously to be very well connected with this real situation of architecture, the ways that we produce today reflection has been changed a lot in comparison with 15 or 20 years ago. And Verb was the first step for us to be at the same time that something happens, no? And obviously today the knowledge is more networking and producing, no? It's a network thinking happens with the content. And ACTAR and Verb especially was simply trying to represent this new reality. Obviously today, I think trying to answer the last question, that happens with other platforms. I think the discussion related Verb with the books and magazine today for us, the challenge is to adapt at different platforms, like obviously the digital platforms or exhibitions or so on. For us, the challenge today, and we are just in the middle of developing these new projects, is trying to put together with a certain sense all the ways, all the platforms that today we produce knowledge or reflection, or we are connected, or we use normally for be connected with this content, working together and helping us to, I don't know, to adapt this network thinking to be available for everybody. Today, the content construction is more a question of a network thinking, and I think that represents a big change for us today.
Only a few things more is when you ask it for why we presented some content in a monograph point of view, is because we try to do the deeply way that we can do. Let's say, usually the magazines banalize in some way the content, or how do you introduce a building on some theories or some approach to the architectural discourse. But if you can develop this in a deeply way, monograph position, that produces a better content, no? I think that probably in this moment is more interesting to do in that way, because thanks to the internet and these blogs, posts, and everything that you know, analyze even more the context, and only we put attention on the image rather than the construction of the same discourse, no? So for me, it was very interesting to think as a magazine you can produce this deeply content. No?
Thank you.
Okay, so hello, my name is Janina, and I'm going to ask you about publishing. The first question is, could you define publication in the context of exhibition and the status it has today? How do you view the relationship between architecture and publishing? Do you think that architecture and publishing are critical to each other in today's world? More precisely, does each do for the other something that they cannot otherwise achieve on its own? And the last one is, have you noticed a rise or decline in book print sales in recent years? How has it affected ACTAR's publications?
Maybe I can start with could you define publication?
In the
context of exhibition.
Sorry?
In the context of exhibition.
In the context of exhibition.
Okay, in the context of exhibition. Okay, as you know, every time that you make a publication, in some way you are fixing a content in some kind of format. Let's say printed paper, or what happens now in a digital, what can I say, format, no? So it's quite difficult to think how an exhibition can be fixed in a publication. I guess this is one of the challenges that the courses that Luis and Sarah are trying to do, no? But probably is, from my point of view, always is trying to do something else that is not also or included in the exhibition. Let's say that you can add some extra content or maybe a critical point of view, no? Or even some contents can be developed in a deeply way rather than you exhibit it, no? So I guess it's quite important not to get the publication of an exhibition only as a documentary point of view rather than something that you expand this content, no? In this case, I guess it will be most interesting.
Yeah, related to the second question, how do you view the relationship between architecture and publishing? The framework is enormous. No, that depends. That depends of the publisher, the readers, the audience, and the public. Obviously, there is an old relationship between architecture and publishing, and most related to the fact that the activity of architecture in the past was very private, was very well only connected with the few people. Simply the impact with the users was enormous, but the process of developing and the process of research in architecture was related to few people. And thanks to the publishing, the idea of architecture, of the architect, become more open, more transparent, more available for more people. Probably thanks to the publication of architecture and the publishing effect, people like you discover the architecture. If not, sometimes be part of one architecture, I don't know, team, or understand what happens into the universities and so on. Sometimes it's very difficult. I think the idea of published architecture simply is the opportunity to developing this reflection and criticism on the impact of architecture, but at the end it is an enormous impact. Our cities, our buildings, our way we're living today in our cities or in our towns as a result of the work of architects and urbanism. And at the end, that represents an enormous responsibility and enormous impact that depends on the way the people live. And simply, I think it's really, I don't know, more important to analyze this effect than other subjects or publishing. For example, I don't know, the way that some people living today or people, etc., etc. I think for the other part, my opinion is the level of criticism in the publishing architecture is very low. But at the end, after the previous ideas for developing one project like publishing architecture, publishing company, there are many questions related to the surveillance, to the audience, profitability, and so on. And in my opinion, several or majority of the publishing companies today, they simply produce generic contents. The idea to produce some critic has been disappeared, and I think this is a bad news at the end. This was probably the very easy answer to the third question. Could you evaluate the status of publication today? Obviously, if we add the question of the new platforms, the new ways to the audiences to be connected with the products and so on, I think obviously the classical paper architectural publishers, we are in the moment of a big translation. We are just in this edge of a new era with the new opportunities, but with one of the most oldest business that never exist. Published books is something that happens after more than 300 years, and today probably during this next 15 or 20 years will disappear probably. I don't know. That depends. There are many opinions in this respect, but the paper productions become then very expensive. The distribution of the books, printed books, is also very, very expensive. More if you're trying to be internationally distributed, and at the end, the fast track in terms of production of content is more than the process of produce a printed book is able to adapt at this rhythm, at this speed, no? And probably we are in this moment part of this process that the printed book become lower and lower and lower till the moment that probably disappear. We'll see what happens. And you? Have you this rise of decline? Well, I think for the last question.
Yeah, it's already answered, I think.
Absolutely decline.
In this moment, we sold, I don't know, the 40% less of books than 3 or 4 years ago. That's the normal situation for all the publishers today. Our business has been reduced and delayed in a 40–50%.
Okay. Right. Our questions are about editing. So our first question, when did ACTAR start to explore other forms of art in their publications? Was this a personal ambition of yours, or was this a reaction to the cultural view? When did you begin to view architecture on the same level of art? ACTAR publishes books with a variety of art mediums, graphic design, and architecture. Which, from your experience, is the most difficult to explore and represent through publishing? And do you find it difficult to make a piece of artwork come to life in your writing? How do you find yourselves translating the experience through text?
Well, for the first question, I think more or less I said before, for us, you know, with our experience, is a question, is our ambition, but is a question of be part of this global situation related to the publishing, no? or the producing content. Is not something that you decide, or you be part of this moment of these new rules and new opportunities, or you simply probably will disappear. For us, it's something very positive. Don't perceive with this previous reflection related to the long and then the slow and fast, the reduction on the paper productions, some melancholical approach. I think, yeah, it's very nice to have one book into your hands, but at the end, there are many things that probably are better with the other platforms, not only from the ecological point of view, also for this opportunity that simply are better, well connected with the reality. You know, the book process is a very low and a very difficult process, and I think there are many things happens every day that the printed book is not able to perceive. But yeah, I think for me this is a very obviously in the middle of this big storm, but represent a big opportunities, and I'm very excited and satisfied with the challenge for us in the next future, no? And you, perhaps?
Yeah. No, the second question that when you ask for when we decide or how we can see or make this comparison between art and architecture, I guess as soon as the name of the house publishing is ACTAR. ACTAR in the sense that it's an activity. As you know, the modern art becomes art rather or farther than the same piece of art. I mean, in some way, art is also a kind of performance, so why not a kind of an installation? So if you think that architecture also it can be a performance, something reflexive, and something that changes the way of seeing things, then architecture becomes at the same level as art, no? At least from my point of view. No?
Yeah, related to the third question, different mediums, graphic design, architecture, which from your experience the most difficult to explore and represent through publishing is obviously the part of these areas that change more fast. As I said before, the real situation of the reflection, if we're trying to adapt at the same speed, at the same time that the book process, we have many problems, and especially with the graphic design, for example. The graphic design are more connected to the perception, sensations, and different, I don't know, reasons than the architect, or that are more deeply concepts, and these concepts are more established in the time, and obviously helps to maintain a certain position. With the graphic design, normally, for example, today it's very difficult to produce a successful books. We published during the last 5 or 6 years many graphic design books, but today for the audience of a graphic design projects, the printed book become one of the less interest and more strange. But simply, if we needed a 6-month minimum for presenting the work, probably after that period of time, the subject of the book, if it's graphic design, has been changed a lot. The immediately impact of this old content is not so very relevant. For this reason, probably for me, under my point of view, the graphic design is probably the most difficult to explore. And the last question, perhaps you?
Yeah. Of course, always is difficult to explain or writing about some piece of art, building, or whatever object, no, or tangible object, no. But at the meantime, you can escape from that. Us as a humankind always needs to be socialized, to share our thoughts, and to do that we can or speak or write it. So we can escape to do that. As I said, of course it's difficult, but at the same time it's a challenge for an architect. And in the essence, if we think as a kind of an ACTAR action, let's say in that way, we need to put or write down these ideas. No? So, but I know it's difficult. No? But what is interesting, for instance, as a publisher, is not to write down in the, how can I say, not only in one way. I mean, probably when we thought about architecture, the writing is usually a critical point of view, or the architects explaining their self-works. But what we're trying to do, at least from the history of ACTAR, is always include new narratives. I guess it's very interesting and very important to think about how to explain things. No? And always we have to invent, or you have to imagine a new way of doing that. No? For instance, I remember in Verb, we started to use this kind of as a comic, no? That the architect or the editor itself can explain to the audience or something is within the magazine, which is the sensation when you are experimenting in this building. No? So there are many ways to make this explanation of this experience to write down on a blank pages, let's say.
Okay, we're gonna move to the next topic. We can almost like also like synchronize it, just read all the questions and then we can just try to just make it a bit shorter so we can just go through the remaining tips.
Okay. We're asking questions about curating. The first question is, how do you go about selecting topics for publishing? Where do you begin to search for resources? The second question, is it difficult for little-known artists or designers to get published? The third question, which criteria is used to determine whether a work is successful enough to be published other than subjective appeal? And the fourth question, what criteria do you look at when deciding if a design is worth publishing?
And the other set of questions, is it always clear to categorize things between architecture, graphic design, contemporary art, and photography? I think you guys covered that a little bit. And how do you find architects and artists interested in being published? Where do you find them, or do they find you? How do you pick the designers you feature in your publications? And from your experience, what is successful and unsuccessful within publishing art and architecture? And what is the difference between publishing and experiencing it?
Okay, we have in our paper the different order. I will introduce briefly your question and after I'll answer. For example, my first question is it always clear to categorize things between architecture, graphic design, contemporary art, and photography, or are there times where there is a gray area between them? Yes, I think part of the construction of the knowledge today is also a very complex combination of different areas. Obviously, your perception of architecture, for example, has put with thanks to the photography of architecture, probably one of the main part. And photography is only a way to represent, but at the same time, it's a way to explain the architecture. Yeah, to developing or categorize the different ways to developing the research, the content, or the reflections are a combination of different ways: graphics, design, photography, and rights and images. There are different languages, and we use all of them together. What happens when I think this gray area between them become the main part of the content that probably we are describing our job? I think probably it would be very difficult to explain architecture without this gray area where we use all the different ways, the different platforms for developing this contact, this reflection on architecture. At that point, how do you distinguish them? Well, I think sometimes in part of our backlist we have books that are more photographical approach, but not for this reason. We simply understand a book on photography. For us, for example, I remember now the book on the monography on the Seattle Public Library of MOA was a combination of many photographies, sometimes from the video cameras, sometimes for the classical camera and so on. And I think the narration was a combination of a kind of walk through the building, and not for this reason was less architectural approach. You know, we not always needed plans or design sections and floor plans for describe architecture. That depends on the level of description. Your second question is that?
Yeah.
Really, no,
exactly. How we can select topic for publishing and where we are searching. Mostly are two sources. One is the the book proposal that is coming to us for around the world, let's say, that we evaluate as an editor, as for instance, Luis also evaluate a lot of book proposal together with Ramon me, and we take a lot of criteria, but mostly we fix the interesting in the contemporary world, let's say, no, on the currently moment. For us, it's really important to understand what is happening just now. No? We don't publish, let's say, in some way, what did Palladio when was drawing, I don't know, one column, no? To understand me, no? We are fixing in the currently moment. So if the book proposal is coming, we evaluate this, let's say, chance to say something new about this situation, and also is in connection with the quality of the writing, of course, quality of the images, and mostly this topic, no? That in some way we think could be interesting for let's say, our audience, no? Another thing, also sometimes we check with our distributor to understand if this book could work in the sales, in the market, no? But it's not usual. We usually fix more in the content, no? We are more interested in what is saying that, no? But in some ways, we look for projects, you know, as you, no? Searching on website or reading some magazines. We receive a lot of magazine books as well. You know, probably when you go to a lecture, you get surprised with some architects on offices, or when you go to, I don't know, a final jury, you can discover another partners or another members of the jury that are doing something interesting. It's a kind of random situation. Only when you are working, you are searching and you are looking for something different, no?
Yeah, related to the question that how do you pick the designers you feature on your publications, I think just from the beginning in ACTAR we designed several, or the majority of our books. The process of the graphic design for us was and is part of the process of developing the subject, the platform. The graphic design helps to explain as the way we decide to explain the main topics and the main areas of interest of one project, and obviously that become a kind of a specialization. I think in this case, me personally, I'm very well involved with in the past and today and now with the design of the books, and then yes, become a kind of a real specialization. Obviously, we had and we have and we will have different collaborations with other graphic designers around the world. More of them specialized people in doing books and so on. That depends on the project, of the author, and the collaboration. But that's for us at the beginning. Not only the graphic design process, also the photography process was part of our way to understand the building and the way to have to reproduce it. But if not, sometimes you discover or you understand one building through the existing images. And these images are normally the same images for everybody, no? Normally the process said that one architect simply decide to have one reportage, one very unknown photographer, and these images are only the same images for represent the building. That happens long time ago with especially Le Corbusier, for example. I remember that he make all the retouch and he changed totally the representation of the views of their buildings for trying to explain that he decided or he thought that was the best way to represent. Photography is in a certain way a kind of a way to optimize the image of a building, And under our point of view, simply we're trying to take the same level of pictures, very neutral pictures with landscape context for explaining the relationship with the building with their context, and perhaps with the graphic design, simply, yeah, we're trying to adapt to the way to explain better the project and the characteristics of the building, the main ideas, and so on.
We're gonna change topic, if you don't mind. Yeah, just because I mean we're gonna run out of time. We have only like 10 more minutes. So I think that the best is that we think about what will be there are like still 3 more topics. One that we wanted to discuss with you will be like new media. Another one will be like about audience. Another is about like more general exhibitions at biennales. So, I mean, you have more or less the questions in front of you. I mean, for me, I think that the most efficient way of doing that will be that you say something about each of the 3 topics as you wish, and then if there are questions from the students, they will ask for more like specific kind of clarifications and so on based on the specific questionnaire. No? So basically, feel free to discuss as you think that the most important parts of each of the topics that we open to you. Like basically, what will be the impact or the opportunities of new media? You have been already approaching that several times in the answers that you've been providing, but also like there are some specific maybe like ideas that you want to share with us about what do you see as a kind of possibility within the kind of the digital territory. The second will be like more about the audience, specifically how do you understand your audience, how do you design it, or do you think that it's existing there and you go for it? So what will be the correlation with the external world, or how do you understand the public aspect of it? And the last one is if you have any specific ideas about biennials or exhibitions in relation with publications that you also want to share with us as a way of expressing your intuitions about what will constitute the right format for a future biennale, for example.
Okay. Media. I will start with the media. I think in this moment we are just in the middle of a big analysis and discussion and reflection related to the idea of a multi-platform. If in the past the printed book was the platform that was alone in certain way, the only one way for spread content, and obviously for produce content, the book was probably the only one way that the people was connected with the knowledge. We learned through the books, the printed books in the past, only through the printed books, and obviously with the class and so on, no? But especially through the printed books. Today there are several and very interesting platforms that happens too. And our challenge today is trying to adapt to our business model from the one platform, the printed platform, to the multi-platform. And multi-platform at the end means simply the combination, as I said before, of these platforms, the printed book, digital book, applications, exhibitions, audiovisual too, I think it's really very important, and other platforms that helps today to be connected with this real situation of the architecture. Each platform has their audience, and I think that's one of the main ideas, the most important ideas. Today the printed book become a very selective platform with the idea of a permanency and with the content that simply has the opportunity to become permanent in time, but this is one of the main characteristics of the printed book. We will have during the next 100 years, we will remain printed books, probably not the digital files. And that then is one of the values, the idea of a permanency for the printed book. But for the other hand, the digital platforms become the platforms for the developing ideas, for the platforms ongoing, for more the research, continuously research, and for be part of the big discussions. And I think this is one of the most interesting platforms, but the continuous discussion produces more and deeply reflection. I think this is a very interesting. Audiovisual platform is the platform for the big audiences, for more generic concepts, but for the big audiences. If you have 1,000, 5 or 7 or 10,000 people as a maximum audience for one book, you will have hundreds of thousands audience for one documentary or one television program or something like this. And that's the big difference. Obviously, it's not the same level of our content or reflection. You have to adapt the content to the different platform, but then audiovisual become the biggest one. Exhibition. The exhibition for us is the opportunity to be connected with the real things, with the physical things, with the physical experience, for understand better the space, the objects, and your own experience. Conferences, for example. Conferences become an interesting platform for share, for discuss in real time with other people your ideas. This human contact, and then it's sometimes important. We discuss after with the idea of a biennale, the human contact, the interchange, the human interchange of ideas become another big asset. And I think simply for us, if our main goal in the past was be part of this big, discussion on architecture and producing some reflection and spread and share with other audiences. Today, the only way to maintain this definition is through the multi-platform strategy. I think this is the way that we think we will continue in the past if we accept that the printed book become one of these platforms, but probably with the minus impact. The main impact become more audiovisual and probably digital, but the minus impact, but probably more deeply impact is the printed book. Okay, the media, and you.
Yeah, maybe in some ways is saying the same that Ramon was telling to you, no? For instance, about the audience. Of course, we have to think about if we want to go searching for the audience, or if the audience has to discover us, no? As you probably know, ACTAR as a publisher is more in the way that you produce a specific or a point of view with your books, and someone of the audience will be interested in that. Let's say that this comes from the academia, practitioners, or even more thinkers, no? But it's not our case that we are trying to get the maximum audience. Of course, that is in a business, and we have to try to get the maximum, but the maximum is quality, no? And in this reflection, as Ramon said, we have to understand how the audience get this documentation of these works, no? And of course, that has changed a lot, and we are analyzing. We are trying to build up some kind of a new multi-platform, multi-channel, multi-formats that will deliver the contents, and that's the way. But it's not easier because, again, as I said, as a business, you have to find out how you can recover or how your investment has in some way income. So it's more difficult than it seems, no? Because everybody thinks that the content is for free, no? And also it's a big debate that probably we need more time to discuss, no?
Yes, I forget one very interesting thing related to this question. Is the fact that in the multi-platform action, the main probably opportunity becomes the connection between different platforms. Not only the fact that we will adapt at each of one platforms the content, also the idea that the combination, this gray area that you said before, become the new and the hybrids again area where we will have a big challenge for developing under the financials and under the economical point of view. Obviously, the big problem for the new platforms become the fact that the fact that there is not the attitude to pay for the electronic or digital content, but I think we have to developing another kind of economy related to this fact. And probably the combination of different multi-platforms helps to do it. For example, imagine that one day you see one documentary or in television on your computer with one concept. Obviously this documentary is free for you, but it's part of one economical structure of one television channel. You never pay for, if it's not a pay-per-view, for see one television channel. The financial of one television channel is related to the advertising and another type of economy. But if you see this content and you decide that it's interesting for you, perhaps you will have the opportunity to buy one book or be part of one conference or I don't know, be part of one exhibition or trying to visit one exhibition. And in this moment you decide if you are interested for paying for this extra content that these platforms will offer you. I think is a question of design a new financial for developing the multi-platform strategy. About audience?
Yeah, okay. I mean, just we have to close it up. So if you want to say something about specifically about biennials or larger exhibition formats, because we need to close it up in 5 minutes, and then if the students have questions, they have also the possibility of sending that to you later through email or something like this.
Perfect. I'm sorry, sometimes you are...
No, sorry for the rush. It's just basically, I cannot stay longer.
About biennals, I think that the biennals is an old format, like the printed book. And the biennals exist, but it's a combination of visibility, political interest, and other type of questions, touristic business too, and so on. We had a long relationship with the Venice Biennale, for example, one time ago. I was the responsible of the publications and the image of the 2000 Biennale, Less Aesthetic, More Ethics, and undiscovered a little bit. The Biennale is a platform, existing platform, probably, first of all, for the fact that the media, the classical media, are very attentive, are very interested to describe that one Biennale exists. You never seen in one classical media someone explain that there is a new blog, interesting new blog, or there is a new digital content existing. The classical media are very well connected with the classical platforms, specifically the books, why not, and exhibitions. And Biennale is an exhibition that happens 2 years ago. The origin of the Biennale, you know, it's very old. It's the idea to discover with this personal contact, not personal experience, the new products, the new ideas, or so on. I think today that happens. The Biennale exists simply for the big impact of the media. I remember when we opened the Venice Biennale in 2000, the curator and me and the rest of the people, especially the curator, he had in 3 days 1,000 interviews with the media, televisions, and so on, to all the world. The impact in the media of the Biennale was incredible. All the visitors of the Venice Biennale normally are less than 200,000 people. This is nothing in comparison, for example, with one exhibition on the MoMA or other big museums. They are millions of people visiting. And it's a strategy, and that visualize the city, that visualize the curator, one idea. I think that Biennale has simply interest under the content point of view if it's linked with other platforms. For me, it's difficult to understand why the people don't understand that during all the full year it's possible to develop in reflection of the topic of the Biennales through the digital platforms, and at the end having this opportunity to be in contact with the real experience with one exhibition. That's the Biennale, no? But only one thing, only one question developing in one moment after 2 years, I think at the end had not a lot of sense. The Biennale, and especially the Venice Biennale, is simply an economical business. In Venice, the main question is to explain to the people that Venice is not only the old palace and the gondolas and so on, if also the way to explain that sometimes something related to the architecture happens. Mostly, if we understand the Venice Biennale appear in after the Art Biennale, and at the end the Art Biennale is simply a part of the business. You know, the business related to the contemporary art is related to the fact that the curators and the collectors and the galleries are in one Biennale for simply buy or selling pieces. And for this reason, I think Biennale have to adapt to the multi-platform ideas, have to develop, but if not, is simply a kind of strategy for visualize not only one city, also the curator's teams are responsible.
Okay. Ricardo, Ramon, thanks very much. Thanks very much for your sharing your knowledge, but also your opinions. I mean, I'm sure that there are tons of things that we couldn't discuss, but I don't know how to handle the format better. I mean, we have the time we have. So I think that the best thing is to close it up now, and if you are open to it, I mean, I will ask the students to send very few, I promise, questions of clarification if they have any, and we will keep you posted about how the seminar progress and what is the research about. We're going to be having like an online blog where everything is going to be uploaded, including our conversation today once it's been edited. So you're going to be having many opportunities to continue the conversation online if you want. We're going to try to find ways to keep you posted, but also involved into the discussions, maybe at the end of the semester, to share with you our work from the students, and then get your feedback that I'm sure is going to be very useful and very interesting. Thanks again in the name of the whole group. I mean, it's difficult to share the thanks in this format, but I mean, I can tell you that all the students I'm sure are going to be very helpful. And we talk soon, like tomorrow. Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye. See you tomorrow. Bye. Bye.